But here's what I wanted to ask you, Peter, on this topic, on this video, and you touched on it on our first video. If you guys missed the first video, make sure to check that out. But in the real estate industry, which I focus quite a bit in, I'm now looking at, okay, so I'm selling stuff for record high, my deals. I got this cash, I'm flipping, making cash. Should I be taking advantage of this low interest right now that's still 3%, interest? Should I be taking advantage of debt, buying as much, maybe not just real estate, anything, to lock in on these fixed rate, low interest rates, knowing that inflation is going to drive everything up? Is that a smart strategy to buy with debt right now?
Well, number one, I mean, obviously, the Fed could surprise me and actually try to save the dollar and put an end to inflation. And if you're over leveraged, you're going to get wiped out. So you have to realize that, there's a lot of risk in the strategy. But I think an important thing is if you take on the leverage, to have the income to service it. So to go and borrow to buy land or non-income producing property. But if you get a property that you can rent and you have a big cushion between the rental income and the debt service.
A low interest,
right?
Yeah.
And you have that debt service locked in, so it's not an adjustable rate loan where all of a sudden it might double. There it's a much safer gamble to make, because even if rates go up, you've got your rate locked in, and even if real estate prices go down, well, you've got rental income that's going to cover that debt service. Now, you have to be careful because you could lose your tenant. So just because you've got a place rented out doesn't mean that you're going to...
Cash flow positive, yeah.
Right, and well, the tenant may stop paying, maybe he loses his job, or maybe the government just says, oh, another moratorium. You don't have to pay your rent, you can't evict. So you got to look at where you're a landlord and take a look at what the landlord-tenant laws are like, and you may get stuck in a situation where you can't get rid of your tenant and he's not paying you any rent, so you can't rent it out to somebody else, yet you still have to make your
debt service.
Payments.
Yeah.
But as I said in the other interview, I mean, the way people will ultimately make money, I think, off of residential real estate is as a debtor, not as a landowner, but as a debtor. But I think like the commercial real estate, I would be very, very nervous about that. A lot of these malls, strip centers, Americans are basically done shopping. I mean, that's going to be when the dollar crashes.
Physically shopping.
Yeah, when the dollar crashes and all these foreign goods are no longer available, that's it for shopping. I mean, because you go to a store and you look at the goods that are on the shelves. It would be like a scavenger hunt to try to find something made in America. So you take all those foreign products out of the
off
stores,
the shelf.
There's nothing left to buy. Now, there will be some foreign products there, but at double, triple, quadruple the price. So Americans, won't be able to buy them. And so I think a lot of this commercial real estate is just going to get killed, and also a lot of office space too. Not only are people working from home, but when you have to transition from a service economy to a production economy, you don't need as much office space. You need factories, you need warehouses, you need stuff that so this real estate doesn't qualify. So there's going to be a big collapse in commercial real estate.
Which you're seeing already. You're seeing a lot of vacancy. You're seeing a lot of empty strip plazas. Yeah, you're already seeing it.
People are gonna need homes. They may not need an office, but they may not go shopping, but they got to live somewhere. So there'll be demand for residential real estate, and obviously, certain areas of the country will be in better demand than other areas. I think people will like having places where you have a yard, especially if you can have a vegetable garden and some fruit trees, because all that stuff is going to be really expensive. So maybe growing your own food for a lot of people, if you have a well or you have some way to be more self-sufficient, because everything that you buy is going to cost a lot of money. So a lot of people are going to look, well, maybe I can produce it myself. Now, some land that would do really well would be like farmland. You could buy yourself a farm, right? Productive land like that where you can grow corn or soybeans or wheat or, yeah. I mean, you'll make a lot of money as a farmer, because all that stuff's going to get really, really expensive. So land will be valuable for the resources. If you've got mineral rights, if you've got oil and gas or something in your property, that could give it a lot of value. But just having a shopping, a strip mall on a piece of property, it's not gonna. That's not gonna be a good investment.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that. I've got a handful of residential properties that I financed at 2.8% interest rate on a 20-year, non-owner occupant, 20-year. So 20% down, 2.8 locked in on a 20-year. And I feel really good about that debt because my cash flow from what those properties rent for, $1,400 a month or whatever, this is Metro Detroit. And, with a really low PITI locked in long term. And in my mind, I think, well, okay, so what, is rent going to go up, continue to go up with inflation? Probably, but then I'm locked in on the debt. So
yeah, but again, you got to look at where the properties are, who your potential tenants are. But I think, look, as building homes gets more and more expensive, okay, so the supply is not going to be there. So we've just got what exists. But the way the potential tenants, the way the demand can fall is, again, people double up. Families, people take roommates or families live together. And so now there's not as much demand because people are taking less space. But you will be able to raise rents. Rents are going to go up as long as you don't have rent control or some type of laws that would limit that. But also I would want to have tenants that have to pay their own electricity, their own garbage, their own water. I wouldn't want to be on the hook for any of these costs because they're all going to go up. So I would want to have a lease where, hey, it's not all inclusive, like I'm covering you cover this, you cover that. There's going to be some building costs or other things that you as a landlord are going to need to deal with, right? Which is going to be like the repairs. That's going to kill a lot of landlords. You have a property and something goes wrong and now the tenant expects you to fix it.
Yeah, and the plumber,
you got to fix it as a landlord.
And the plumber wants $200 instead of $50 or whatever.
Or more, or you have something big goes wrong where you need expensive stuff, so those are going to be some of the problems that are going to hit landlords, and of course homeowners too. People have got, I borrowed all this money, I just barely can afford this mortgage, but I got into this house, and then something goes wrong, and now there's a big cost, and they don't where they can get the money. The house isn't the only thing going up. You want to buy nails, the price of the nails are going up. It's all the components are getting more expensive. So the house is simply the finished product.
My house I bought right over here in Palmas del Mar, here in Puerto Rico. So I contract, we have a closing coming up, 30 days later, whatever. And the agent, I bought it off market. The agent comes to me and says, hey, Jerry, it's been a week or so. I've got a client that will pay you $250,000 more for your house. Do you want to just flip it? And I said, where would I go? I'll whatever that 250 is. Now I'm paying 250 more for a similar house. There's no gain doing it.
And then it's not just your house that's going up, it's everybody's.
Right.
Look, a friend of mine here, he actually sold his place. He sold his house for $8 million. And then the lady decided that she didn't want to buy it because her partner didn't like Puerto Rico, they wanted to leave. So she actually lost like the $500,000 deposit she put down. She walked away from it. The guy sold the same house 3 weeks later for $2.5 million more. 3 weeks later. Yeah. But meanwhile, there's such a lack of understanding about what's going on. The government's going to look at all this and, we need bigger government, we need more programs. There are no government programs that are going to work. It's the government programs that screwed up the economy in the first place. We have to start dismantling government and we have to go back to a free market. Unfortunately, free market capitalism has never been less popular in America than it is right now. It's got a terrible reputation. It's probably going to get even worse, which is why I think real estate in real terms goes down, because real estate is really a function of the wealth of the people that could potentially rent it or buy it. And if you've got a bunch of poor people, unemployed poor people around you, they can't exactly pay good rent. I think the real estate in the US that will retain its real value the most will be real estate that's appealing to foreigners. So beachfront property in Hawaii, stuff that foreigners, but even a lake in the Midwest, I mean, does somebody, really want to go there? I don't know. But there will be places in Miami, that wealthy people, Latin people from Latin America, oh, I can go buy a condo on the beach in Miami. Yeah, I want to do that, right? So those properties will hold up better because you have that international demand. But if your demand is strictly coming from Americans and they're all broke, what can the home